Every family has a version of the quiet kid. The one who nods when they should speak up. The one who smiles through things that don't sit right. The one who never causes a scene and never rocks the boat and never, ever makes things difficult. But here's what nobody tells you: there are actually two kinds of quiet. There's quiet that means you've already given up. And there's quiet that means you've been watching carefully and waiting for exactly the right moment. My family never figured out which one I was. Not until it was way too late. My name is Avery Callahan. I had just turned 18. And by 9:06 the next morning, my mom was sliding a cream-colored folder across our kitchen table like it was just another item on her agenda. She had her warmest smile ready. She said, "Sweetheart, we need to talk about Papa Joe's money." My stomach dropped to the floor. She had zero idea that I already knew everything. Before I take you into that kitchen, if this story hits different for you, hit that like button right now and subscribe if you haven't yet. Seriously helps more than you know. And drop your city and what time it is where you are in the comments. I read every single one. I genuinely do. Okay. Let me take you all the way back to where this whole thing started. 6 months before that kitchen table moment, my family found out which kind of quiet daughter they had raised. It was a Wednesday in October. Kind of fall day in Iowa where it gets dark before dinner and the whole house smells like something slow cooking on the stove. I was cleaning out the top shelf of my closet when I found it, my grandfather's old mahogany keepsake box. Papa Joe had given it to me on my 17th birthday, the last time I saw him in person. I'd pushed it up there after his funeral and hadn't touched it since. The little brass latch clicked when I lifted the lid. Inside, a worn pocket watch with his initials on the back, a black and white photo of him and my grandma Eleanor at their 40th anniversary dinner, and a white envelope. Sealed. Heavy. His handwriting on the front, the careful, deliberate kind that meant every word was chosen on purpose. Open only if something feels wrong with your mother before your 18th birthday. Call Richard Holt immediately. I sat down on the edge of my bed and just held that envelope. Papa Joe had been gone for about a year at that point. He passed from a stroke at 76, right around the time I started my senior year. And somehow, from wherever he'd been sitting when he wrote those words, he had known. He had known enough to put a warning inside a locked box and trust me to find it at the right time. Downstairs, I heard paper shuffling. The slow, careful sound of documents being moved around. My mom's voice low. A man's voice even lower. I couldn't catch any actual words. I didn't need to. I put the envelope back in the box. Closed the latch. Walked downstairs and poured myself a glass of water and didn't say one word about the fact that it was 10:45 at night and there were two people having a very quiet conversation at the kitchen table when my mom was supposed to be in bed. Looking back now, that sealed envelope was the first time anyone had ever handed me real protection. I just didn't know yet what I was supposed to do with it. I didn't open the letter that night. I really should have. My dad's name was Thomas Callahan. He drove a white Chevy Silverado and came home every evening smelling like fresh-cut grass and lawn equipment because he ran a small landscaping company right there in Cedar Falls, Iowa. One morning in March of 2017, he didn't come back from a job estimate out on the county road. Wet pavement, a sharp curve, a guardrail that gave way. A sheriff's deputy came to our front door and stood there holding his hat. My mom, Diane, cried for 6 days straight. Then she started redecorating the living room. She remarried in 2019. His name was Craig Mercer, real estate developer, expensive silver watch, loud opinions about everything. He had a son from his first marriage, Tyler, 3 years younger than me, who moved into what used to be my dad's home office. I figured out pretty fast how things worked in this new version of our house. Number 1, my mom punished tears. If I got upset about anything, she called it being dramatic. She'd let out this long, slow sigh and take her wine glass out to the back porch. Number 2, my mom punished happiness. If I laughed too loud at dinner, she'd tilt her head and say, "Avery, read the room." Her eyes would go just slightly cool. So I went flat. I went quiet. By the time I was 12, I'd stopped letting my feelings show around her. I saved them for Papa Joe's kitchen table and Grandma Eleanor's backyard and the pages of books where other people were allowed to feel things out loud without somebody making them feel bad about it. My mom thought quiet meant she'd won. It didn't. Quiet meant I was paying attention to every single thing. Quiet meant I was storing every detail away somewhere she'd never find it. In our house, showing feelings was a liability. I'd learned early that being open around my mom meant handing her something she could weaponize later. So I stopped. She called it being reserved. I called it keeping myself safe. 8 years later, she would slide a folder across a kitchen table and find out exactly how much I'd been storing. Dinner at the Mercer house ran like clockwork. Craig rolled in through the garage at 6:15, dropped his heavy key ring on the counter, a luxury car fob that made a loud, sharp clank, and almost always walked in saying something like, "Comps came in low again," or "The zoning board pushed us back another 2 weeks." My mom would pour his drink before he even asked. Tyler would talk. He always talked, filling up every quiet space like silence made him nervous. On a Sunday in late February, Tyler had just gotten his early acceptance to the University of Denver. $58,000 a year before books. Craig raised his glass. My mom squeezed Tyler's shoulder. "We'll figure out the rest, bud. Don't even sweat it." Tyler glanced over at me. I was cutting my chicken. Without looking up, I said, "I got into the University of Iowa last week. Honors college." Silence. My mom said, "Oh, that's wonderful, sweetheart." Craig grunted and swirled his drink. "State school is fine." Nothing wrong with state school. He still didn't look at me. My mom smiled that smile she kept for charity events. "Avery, we'll sit down and talk about your future closer to your birthday." That phrase, "closer to your birthday." She'd already used it 4 times that month alone. It didn't sound like she was planning a celebration. It sounded like an appointment she'd already made, for herself, not for me. Craig topped off his glass, all casual, like he was just making small talk. "Family money belongs in family hands, Avery. Not sitting in some lawyer's office somewhere, collecting dust." My mom shot him a look. Fast. Way too fast. Kind of look that says shut up right now without saying a word. I kept cutting my chicken. "Before I go any further, I have to tell you about Grandma Eleanor. She passed away when I was 14. Ovarian cancer. She fought it for 3 years. On her last afternoon, she held my hand and told me I was one of the most steady, clear-eyed people she'd ever known, and not to let anyone talk me out of trusting myself. I held it together in the hospital room. Fell apart the second I got to the parking lot, in the passenger seat of Papa Joe's old Buick. He didn't tell me to calm down or pull it together. He just said quietly, "Let it all out, kiddo. You've earned that." Papa Joe held on for 2 more years after she was gone. He got quieter, not sadder, just quieter. The way a house gets quiet after the party ends but before anyone's moved the chairs back. The summer I was 16, I spent 7 weeks at his house in Des Moines. I read to him from the armchair by the window. I weeded his vegetable garden. I made his eggs exactly the way he liked, hard yolk, real butter, a pinch of salt. He died in October. At the kitchen table with a coffee cup in front of him, like he'd just sat down to take a quick break. The funeral, my mom wore charcoal gray and cried at exactly the right volume. Craig stood in the back and checked his phone twice. The will got read 3 weeks later. There was a trust, my name on it, and a number that made Craig's jaw go loose. Roughly $740,000. Index funds, a cash account, and the sale proceeds from a small commercial property Papa Joe had sold years earlier in Ames. Terms were completely clear. Those assets were mine alone. I couldn't touch the main amount until my 18th birthday. On that exact date, full ownership transferred to me. Trustee named on the paperwork was a man called Richard Holt. Papa Joe's handwritten note tucked inside the folder said 7 words. Your life, your choices. Love always, Papa. My mom read those 7 words with a look on her face I had never seen before. Not sad, not proud. Something that looked a whole lot more like a calculator running numbers. Papa Joe had handed me a lifeline. My mom, it turns out, had already been figuring out where to cut it. 5 months before my 18th birthday, a man in a charcoal suit started showing up at our house. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. same car every single time. A dark gray Audi with a personalized license plate frame that said Whitfield and Lang, Des Moines Estate Planning. He'd stay an hour, sometimes longer. He always left with a fat leather portfolio under his arm. My mom told me he was an insurance consultant, then a financial advisor, then a friend of Craig's who helps with some paperwork. The story kept changing. The portfolio didn't. One afternoon in January, I came home early from my shift at the public library because the roads were icing over and my supervisor sent everyone home. I pushed in through the side door and stopped cold. My mom's voice carrying from the kitchen. Once she puts her name on it, the whole thing wraps up clean. Craig, and if she asks questions? My mom with a short dry laugh. Avery? Please. She'll sign. She always just goes along. I stood in that entryway with my coat still on and my heart hammering. Then I stomped my feet on the mat loud and called out, Mom, I'm home early. Papers shuffled fast. When I walked into the kitchen, the table was completely clear. My mom was leaning against the counter smiling like she'd been standing there all afternoon. Roads getting bad, hon? Want some hot chocolate? Sure, I said. Just barely visible under the edge of her cardigan sleeve, the corner of a folder. Cream-colored. Embossed letterhead. Whitfield and Lang. Tyler walked in behind me with his earbuds hanging around his neck. He looked at the counter and said, Is that about Avery's inheritance? My mom's smile didn't move a single millimeter. Craig said, Ty, go upstairs. Tyler went upstairs. My mom handed me the hot chocolate. You are such a good girl, Avery. I took the mug. Thanks, Mom. I went up to my room. That was the exact moment I stopped being the daughter who didn't know. I just didn't tell anyone I'd crossed that line. Okay, real quick. If you have ever had a family member ask you to sign something and tell you don't bother reading the whole thing, just trust me, drop the word study in the comments right now. I want to know how many of us there actually are. I genuinely read every comment. Keep watching because what comes after this gets wild. I opened Papa Joe's letter that following Saturday. I drove to Sycamore Park by myself, parked by the walking trail, and sat in my car with the heater going and the envelope in my lap. The sky was the color of wet concrete. Every tree was bare. Papa Joe's handwriting. 1 page, front and back. Avery, if you're reading this, something has gone sideways with your mother. I have suspected it for a long time. I never wanted to turn you against her because she is still your mom and that matters. But I could not leave this world without making sure you had a door to walk through if you needed one. Richard Holt has been my attorney for over 30 years. He knows everything. He is waiting for your call. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to choose your own life. I believe with everything I have that you will make the right call. All my love, Papa. Below that, in neat block letters, a phone number. Area code 510. I sat there a while. My hands were cold. My eyes stayed dry. I took out my phone and dialed. A woman answered. Holt Estate Law, this is Sandra. Hi. My name is Avery Callahan. My grandfather was Joseph Callahan. He told me to call Mr. Holt. Half a second of quiet. Then, hold on just one moment, sweetheart. Click. Then a voice, calm, unhurried, the kind of warm that comes from years of delivering hard news to people who weren't expecting it. Avery. This is Richard Holt. Your grandfather talked about this possibility many times over the years. I'm really glad you called. Can you come to my office next week? You can tell your mom it's a financial aid appointment for college. Yes, I said. Good. And Avery, don't change anything at home. Not your expression, not your schedule, not one single word. Can you do that? I said, honestly? That's basically what I've been doing my whole life. A pause. Then, quietly, I know. Your grandfather told me. Richard Holt's office was on the third floor of a stone building on Locust Street in downtown Des Moines. A wooden nameplate on the door. Shelves full of Iowa law books. A big fiddle leaf fig in the corner that somehow looked like it had been through some stuff and survived anyway. He stood up when I walked in. 60, hair going white at the sides, reading glasses pushed up on his head. He wore a tie that had probably been in style about 3 presidential terms ago, and he shook my hand like he genuinely meant it. He walked me through everything slowly, using everyday language. He wrote the key terms on a yellow legal pad so I could actually follow along. Beneficial interest meaning the right to benefit from the money, fiduciary duty meaning a legal responsibility to act in someone else's best interest, spendthrift clause meaning a built-in rule that protects the money from outside pressure, irrevocable meaning permanent, can't be undone. He said, at midnight on your 18th birthday, Avery, the assets your grandfather left you are legally yours and yours alone. You have a few options. You can leave the current trust as is. You can dissolve it entirely. Or you can set up a brand new structure today, one built specifically to protect you. I said, what do you recommend? He said, a new permanent trust with a professional independent trustee, not a family member, not someone your mother can get to. I work with a company called Heartland Trust Services out of Iowa City. Clean record going back to 1984. You'd be the only person who benefits from it. Distributions, meaning money you can actually use, would be approved for school costs, housing, medical bills, and real emergencies. Your mother, Craig Mercer, and Tyler Mercer would be locked out. Permanently. I said, and permanent means it seriously can't be undone? Even by me. He said, even by you. That's the whole point. Protects you from outside pressure, and honestly, it also protects you from yourself. 5 or 10 years from now, if your mom finds exactly the right way to ask, you won't be able to hand it over even if you wanted to. I thought about her smile at the kitchen island. Her closer to your birthday. The hot chocolate she'd handed me over a folder she thought I'd never seen. I said, let's build it. He nodded. He looked at his notepad, then looked back up at me. Before we go any further, you need to know something about your mother's attorney. Sighed. A city bus rolled past. The fiddle leaf fig sat quietly in its corner. I said, tell me. He folded his hands on the desk. Your mother has been working with a man named Dennis Whitfield. He runs Whitfield and Lang here in Des Moines. He's already had 1 formal reprimand from the Iowa State Bar and he's currently being looked at for a second. He specializes in what the profession politely calls aggressive family wealth restructuring. Meaning he drafts paperwork that most attorneys flat out refuse to touch. He opened a folder and slid it halfway across the desk toward me. Upside down, I could make out the title at the top. Callahan Family Financial Consolidation Agreement. My full legal name underneath. Avery Rose Callahan. He said, a legal assistant who recently left Whitfield's office sent drafts of this to 2 attorneys she trusted because she was troubled by what she'd been asked to prepare. I was one of those attorneys. I said, what does the document actually do? It would make your mother a co-trustee on your account. It hands her full financial decision-making power over your money. And it shifts a big chunk of what's rightfully yours into a holding company called Callahan Mercer Partners, LLC. He let me read. The signature line was dated January 31st, 3 months before my birthday, while I was still 17 years old. I looked up. I'd still be a minor when they wanted me to sign this. Exactly, he said. Your mother's signature as your legal guardian would be required alongside yours. That's the design. Get you to sign while she still has legal authority over you, before the trust fully releases to you on your birthday. I set the folder down. My hands were completely steady. That honestly surprised me. How long has this been in the works? I asked. Based on the document versions, we're looking at version 5.1, so at least 5 rounds of drafting. This started no later than last fall. About 5 months that we know of. 5 months. 5 months of my mom making my favorite dinners, asking how my college applications were going, calling me sweetheart, while a lawyer 5 miles away was on his 5th draft of a document with my name in the header. I said, all right. Let's build something she can never get to. I drove home at exactly the speed limit. Walked in at 5:45. My mom was making her Sunday chicken pot pie, the one with the thick buttery crust that she'd been making since I was little, the one that used to make the whole house feel like everything was okay. She turned from the stove when she heard me. How was the financial aid meeting, hon? Really good, actually. Got a lot of info. Oh, that's great. Come sit. She set a bowl in front of me. 2 big scoops, a little sprig of parsley on top because she always did that. She sat across from me and folded her hands on the table. Avery, your birthday is coming up. I kept my face exactly where she expected it. I know, yeah. 18 is such a big milestone. I was thinking we keep it simple, just family, a special breakfast. Pancakes, your favorite. And maybe we have a real grown-up conversation. You're a woman now. Craig drifted through from the living room. Grown-up stuff. Didn't even look up from his phone. Tyler wandered in looking for a snack. What grown-up stuff? My mom smiled brightly. Just family planning, honey, Tyler said, boring, grabbed an apple and disappeared. I took a bite of pot pie. Tasted exactly the way it always had. Like butter and thyme and the version of childhood I was still trying to sort out. Pancakes sound really good, Mom, I said. And I smiled. Completely on purpose. Now I need to stop and tell you about Naomi. Naomi Chen had been my best friend since 7th grade. She knew something was wrong in my house long before I told her anything. Not because I'd spilled it, but because she'd been watching from the outside, which is sometimes the only angle from which you can actually see the shape of a thing clearly. I called her from Sycamore Park the same afternoon I'd called Richard. She picked up on the second ring. I said, I need to tell you something and I need you to not spiral. She said, already spiraling. Go. I told her everything. The envelope, the letter, the man in the Audi, the folder with my middle name on it, the LLC with Craig's name attached to it. Naomi went quiet for a moment. Then she said, Avery, your grandfather put a lawyer's phone number in a locked box. 'Cause he knew. He knew way before any of us did. Yeah. And you have just been sitting at dinner with these people this whole time. Yeah. Another pause. Then, you are genuinely the most composed person I have ever met in my life, and I need you to know that scares me a little. For the next 6 months, Naomi was my behind-the-scenes support system. When I needed to talk through a dinner where my mom had been doing her best performance, I texted Naomi. When I overheard Craig and my mom talking carefully about structure and accounts, and before April, I texted Naomi. She talked me off every ledge and checked in without me having to ask. She never said a word to anyone. Not one. 3 weeks before my birthday, my phone rang. Unknown number, Denver area code. It was Aunt Carla. Avery. It's your Aunt Carla. Denver calling. You got a few minutes? I slipped out to the backyard. The air smelled like early spring dirt. She said, I heard from Richard Holt that you'd been in touch. He didn't tell me the details. I didn't need them. Carla Callahan was my dad's older sister, pediatric ER doctor in Denver 53, absolutely no patience for nonsense. She and my dad had been really close. She and my mom had not been. She said, there's something I should have told you years ago and I didn't, and I'm sorry for that. A pause. About 8 months before your dad died, he tried to set up a trust for you. He wanted me listed as co-trustee. He was worried about what might happen to you if something happened to him. I sat down on the porch step. What happened to it? Your mom happened. Carla's voice was steady, not angry. She told him it was a betrayal. Said it meant he didn't trust her to take care of you. She cried for a week. He backed down. Left everything to her, the life insurance, the house, all of it. I said quietly, $430,000. You found the paperwork. Last month. A long silence. Then Carla said, Honey, you are not the first person she has worked this angle on. You are just the one whose grandfather had the foresight to plan ahead. I didn't cry. I really wanted to. I didn't. She said, I have a spare room. A retriever named Frank who is absolutely convinced he is a human being. And really good coffee. If you need somewhere to go after your birthday, you come to me. Stay as long as you need. I said, Aunt Carla, what day is it there? She said, Tuesday, same as you, sweetheart. I said, I might take you up on that room. The Sunday before my birthday, my mom made pot roast. She only made pot roast when something big was happening. Craig opened a nice bottle of wine. Tyler put his phone face down on the table without being asked, which told me he'd been coached. The whole house smelled like effort. Over dinner I let a question float out, nice and casual, like I was just curious. Hey Mom, what's actually the difference between a trust and just a regular family account? She lit up like I'd pushed the exact button she'd been waiting for. Oh sweetheart, trusts are way more complicated than people realize. They can completely fall apart if they're not managed by someone who genuinely has the family's best interest at heart. Someone who actually has something at stake. Craig jumped in. Attorneys bleed you dry on fees. I know a guy, Jim Harker, whole thing collapsed inside 3 years. My mom, a family account is just simpler. Everybody's working toward the same goal. No strangers making calls about your money. Craig said, family money belongs in family hands, not in some corporate trustee's office up in Iowa City. The word corporate hit me like a cold splash of water. I had never once used that word around either of them. They had never used it either until right now. But Dennis Whitfield would have. The man writing the document sure would have. I said, yeah, that makes sense. I took a bite of roast. Tyler, from his end of the table, Mom said the money was always supposed to be for all of us anyway. The air in the room shifted completely. My mom's fork stopped midair. Craig snapped, Tyler. Eat your food. My mom bounced back fast. Tyler just means that family works as a team. That's all he means. I looked at Tyler. He had no idea what he'd just handed me. He was 15, repeating something he'd overheard, and that was not his fault at all. But my mom had told him enough. Enough that he genuinely believed this money was partly going to be his. I reached for the gravy. The roast is incredible, Mom. Seriously. Inside, I was locking every single word away. If you're still watching, drop a comment right now. Just tell me, have you ever been the person at the table who knew way more than they were showing? 'Cause this next part? This is where it all comes together. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up. I promise you there is more to this story. 2 days before my birthday, my mom announced a dinner. No asking. Just announcing. A reservation at Cedar Bluff Steakhouse, the private dining room. 14 people. Craig's business partner Leon. 2 neighbors. My mom's book club co-chair Patricia. Her pastor and his wife. Tyler in a button-down. Craig in a navy blazer that had clearly been bought several years and 10 pounds ago. My mom stood up during dessert and tapped her wine glass with her spoon. I just want to say how incredibly proud I am of this young woman. She has grown into someone who is going to make such thoughtful, smart decisions. 14 glasses went up. I raised mine. Thank you, Mom, I said. Across the table, Craig caught my eye. He tipped his glass toward me and mouthed, "Big day soon." I smiled right back. 2 tables over, a man was dining alone. Mid-50s. Very expensive haircut. A heavy signet ring on his right hand. A leather briefcase propped against the leg of his chair. He looked up. He looked at Craig. A small, professional nod passed between them. Craig nodded back. I didn't know his face yet, but I absolutely knew that briefcase. I knew exactly what kind of person sits alone at a restaurant with a briefcase, watches a table from a distance, and bills by the hour. Dennis Whitfield was already at my birthday dinner. 1 day early. Ready. The pastor raised his glass and said something genuinely kind about Papa Joe. About how proud he would have been. About how much he loved me. I raised my glass. I thought, Papa, I really hope you can see this. Then I drank my water and held my face right where it needed to be. April 22nd, 11:52 p.m. Bedroom door locked. Laptop open on my desk. I was in the most regular version of myself I owned. Old gray sweatpants, a faded Iowa Hawkeyes shirt, thick socks. I wanted my signature to belong to the girl who'd slept in this room every night. Not some dressed-up version of her. At 11:54, Richard joined the video call. White at the temples, blue tie, that wooden nameplate on the wall behind him. At 11:56, a representative from Heartland Trust Services joined. Her name was Dr. Priya Suri. She said, "Happy almost birthday, Miss Callahan." At 11:58, the online notary joined. Commissioned in Iowa. ID check done. 11:59. Richard said, "You ready, Avery?" I said yes. 11 hours 59 minutes and 40 seconds. 11 hours 59 minutes and 55 seconds. Cursor blinked on the signature line. 12 hours and 1 second. I typed my full legal name. Avery Rose Callahan. Slowly. Every letter on purpose. The notary confirmed. Dr. Suri confirmed. Richard tracked every line on the screen. 12:02 Asset transfer confirmation. Clicked approve. 2-step verification cleared. 12:03 Dr. Suri said, "Initiating transfer." 12 hours 4 minutes and 37 seconds confirmed. Funds received. $741,812. The Eleanor Trust is fully funded. Executed. And permanent. Richard looked directly into his camera. "Happy birthday, Miss Callahan. Your grandfather would be incredibly proud of you tonight." I had been holding my breath for almost a full minute without realizing it. I let it go. "Thank you," I said. "All of you." They signed off. The screen went dark. Downstairs, in the quiet of the house, the refrigerator hummed. Car passed outside somewhere. I sat in a room I'd lived in for years and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not braced. Not watching for the next move. Just done. I lay down. Closed my eyes. And I slept. Pause right here with me for a second. If you just felt that, if your chest loosened up listening those last few words, tap the like button. Seriously. Tells me that this kind of story matters to people and it helps this channel grow so I can keep sharing. Leave a comment. What city are you watching from and what time is it there? I want to see where in the world this is reaching people tonight. And listen, what comes next is not the ending. I thought walking out that door the next morning was the finish line. It wasn't even close. Keep watching. Because my mom wasn't done. Craig wasn't done. And the town of Cedar Falls? It had some very strong opinions that were about to hit my voicemail hard. 7:35 a.m. April 23rd. Wide awake before my alarm. I showered. Dried my hair halfway. Put on my favorite jeans and a soft cream-colored sweater and Grandma Eleanor's small pearl earrings. No heavy makeup. I stood in front of my mirror for a second. I said out loud to my own reflection, "Quiet daughter. Then I went downstairs. Kitchen smelled like pancakes and bacon. My mom was at the stove in her pink quilted robe, hair pinned back the way she wore it when she wanted to look put together but still casual. She turned when she heard me. "There is my birthday girl. Happy 18th, sweetheart." She wrapped me in a hug. 2 seconds longer than her hugs usually lasted. She smelled like her perfume and maple syrup. Craig was at the table in a polo shirt with his coffee. Tyler was in pajamas, phone propped against the orange juice pitcher. A cream-colored folder sat slightly to the right of my mom's place setting. Not tucked away. Not hidden. Just sitting there. "Sit down, sit down." "Craig, light her candles." Craig pulled a lighter out of his pocket and lit the 3 thin birthday candles on top of my stack of pancakes. My mom pressed her hands together. "Make a wish, Avery." I leaned over the plate. Closed my eyes. "Papa, I hope you know." I blew out the candles. My mom clapped. Tyler said, "Happy birthday, Avy." Craig gave a nod. "These smell amazing, Mom," I said. I picked up my fork, cut into the top pancake, and watched the folder catch the morning light. She let me eat exactly 2 bites. Then she folded her hands on the table and switched to her warm, serious voice, the one she used at her book club when she wanted everyone to feel like she was being real with them. "Honey, now that you're 18, there are some things we really need to sit down and talk about. About what Papa Joe left behind." I set my fork down. "Okay." She slid the folder across the table. Stopped right against my plate. "It's nothing overwhelming. Just some paperwork our attorney put together so we can all be smart about protecting this money as a family." Craig said, "Just some structure. Nothing crazy." Tyler hadn't touched his phone once. That alone told me something about how he'd been prepped for this morning. I said, "Can I look at it?" My mom said, "Of course, sweetheart. Take all the time you need." I opened the folder. Callahan Family Financial Consolidation Agreement. Avery Rose Callahan, Principal. Below that in smaller text, Diane Callahan Mercer, Successor Co-Trustee. Craig J. Mercer, Attorney-in-Fact. My full legal name in 3 different spots on the cover page. A signature line with my name printed below it. And another line for my mom's signature, listed as parent or guardian, which would only matter legally if I were still a minor. Page 2, my mom gets full financial decision-making power over my accounts. Page 4, a big portion of my money gets moved into something called Callahan Mercer Partners LLC. Page 6, co-trustee arrangement. Page 8, acknowledgement of family financial priorities including educational support for Tyler James Mercer. Ice cold. That's what my blood went. I kept my face completely still. I turned to the footer on the first page. Generated January 14, 2026. Whitfield and Lang Document Version 5.1. 5 versions. 5 months of back-and-forth drafts. My mom was still smiling. "It really is simpler than it looks. A couple of signatures and we can just enjoy the rest of your birthday." I said, "I want to read it first." I went through every single page. Both hands. Slow. I tracked the words with my finger. I mouthed some of the longer terms. 2 minutes in, my mom's smile started straining at the edges. 4 minutes in, she tapped her coffee mug twice with her thumbnail. 5 minutes, Craig said, "Avery, you don't need to read every word. Our guy is standing by to notarize this morning." I said, "I like to know what I'm signing. It's just structure. Stop making it a thing." I said, "Craig, a minute ago you said our attorney. Just now you said our guy. Which one is it?" He said, "What?" I said, "Nothing." I turned to page 4. Put my finger on a specific line. "Mom, this says partial ownership gets transferred to something called Callahan Mercer Partners LLC. What exactly is that?" My mom blinked. "It's just a family entity. For tax reasons." It's barely even a real thing. When was it set up? She said, I don't remember the exact date. Craig cut in. Avery, stop picking it apart and sign the highlighted pages. You're making this weird. I looked at him, completely calm. Craig, do you know someone named Dennis Whitfield? The name landed like a brick. Craig's jaw did something small and involuntary. My mom said too quickly, Sweetheart, we haven't told you who our attorney is. I said, I know. That's exactly what I'm pointing out. Tyler finally looked up, eyes wide. Craig said, Morgan. He stopped himself. Said a name that wasn't mine, wasn't Tyler's. A different name entirely, like he'd slipped into another case, another family, another folder with someone else's name on the front. Caught it in 1 second. But I caught it too. Dennis Whitfield had done this before. To someone named Morgan. And Craig had been close enough to that one to mix it up. My mom jumped in. Craig just... I said, Mom, I didn't say I wasn't going to sign. I said I want to understand what I'm signing. There is nothing complicated here. Sign the pages. I said, before I do anything, I'd like to get our family attorney on the phone. Just to walk me through it. I said gently. Like it was the most normal thing. That word broke her face open. Her smile locked up. Her eyes went fast and panicked. We don't need Richard Holt for this, Avery. Dennis can answer any questions you have. Kitchen went quiet. I let the silence sit. I said, Mom. I said it slow. I never told you who our family attorney was. The refrigerator fan kicked off. Nobody breathed. I watched my mom's face run through expressions one after another. Confusion. Then math. Then real fear. And then, slowly, the look I had waited through 6 months of pot roast dinners and practiced smiles and closer to your birthday to finally see. The look that said she understood she had already lost. She said, Your grandfather mentioned him. Years ago. I must have remembered the name. I said, Papa Joe has been gone for over a year. I have never once said Richard Holt's name in this house. Tyler said very quietly, Mom, what is actually happening right now? My mom said, Nothing is happening, Tyler. Avery is being difficult. I said, I'm being careful. My phone lit up on the table, face up, right next to the folder. Richard Holt, ESQ 9:06 a.m. All 3 of them looked at it. Then at me. I said, Do you mind if I put him on speaker? Craig shoved his chair back. Do not answer that phone. My mom said, Avery, wait. I said, I am sitting down, Craig. Calmly. Like I was just pointing out a fact. He is our family attorney. He represented Papa Joe for 30 years. He's calling to wish me a happy birthday. He deserves to be heard. My mom said, This is a private family matter. I said, You made a toast about me in a steakhouse in front of 14 people 2 nights ago, Mom. She had absolutely nothing to say to that. I hit the green button. Hit speaker. Set the phone down on the table between the folder and the maple syrup. Mr. Holt, you're on speaker. I'm at the kitchen table with my mom, Craig Mercer, and my stepbrother Tyler. His voice filled the kitchen. Even. Unhurried. The voice of a man who had done this in other kitchens before and knew exactly how to do it. Good morning, Avery. Happy birthday. Hope I'm not interrupting breakfast. I said, Not at all. We were just going over some paperwork. Good timing then, he said. Tyler stared at the phone. Craig stared at my mom. My mom stared at the folder like it had just turned into something she didn't recognize. Richard said, Avery, I want to formally confirm a few things on the record. Ready? Yes, I said. He said, clearly and without rushing. I'm calling to confirm that the asset transfer we put in place completed successfully at 12:04 a.m. this morning. The Eleanor Trust is fully funded. Trustee is Heartland Trust Services out of Iowa City. This transfer is legally permanent and cannot be reversed. The silence in that kitchen was total. My mom's coffee mug slipped in her grip and bumped the table. Craig's hands, which had been flat on the surface, slowly curled into fists. Tyler said, "What does that mean?" Richard continued, steady as anything. Total amount transferred $741,812. Your first tuition request for the University of Iowa Honors College is already pre-approved. Everything is in order. Craig's voice came out tight. What trust? What are you talking about? Richard said. The Eleanor Trust, Mr. Mercer. Named for Avery's late grandmother. Established at midnight. My mom said, barely above a whisper, Avery. You actually did this. I said, Mom. I did. Tyler said, okay, but what does that actually mean for all of us? Richard said, Tyler, it means the money your grandfather left to Avery is now held by an independent company. Can only ever be used for Avery's benefit. Nobody else can touch it, redirect it, or access it. Not now, not ever. Craig stood up fully. You can't. Richard said pleasantly, Mr. Mercer, I'd really think carefully before finishing that sentence. This call is being recorded for my client's protection. Craig went quiet. He did not sit back down. He stared at the wall. I watched my mom's face go through 4 expressions in about 3 seconds. Disbelief. Calculation. Fear. Then, finally and slowly, the one I'd been waiting for. The look that said I have lost. Richard said, while I have everyone together, there's one more thing. Go ahead, I said. About 12 weeks ago, my office received forwarded drafts of a document package from Whitfield and Lang here in Des Moines. A legal assistant who recently left that firm shared copies with 2 attorneys she trusted because she was bothered by what she'd been asked to help prepare. I was one of those attorneys. My mom said, that is protected work product. Ma'am, Richard said, still completely even, documents prepared for a minor beneficiary don't have the kind of protection you're thinking of here. And the forwarding isn't the real issue. The content is. Craig said, you can't use those. Richard said, I can, Mr. Mercer. I've been doing this a long time. He let that sit for a moment. The document is called the Callahan Family Financial Consolidation Agreement. Names Avery as principal. It has a signature line dated January 31st of this year, 3 months before Avery's 18th birthday, while she was still legally a minor in Iowa. Avery, can you describe what's in front of you? I said, cream-colored folder. 12 pages. Title matches what you said. Letterhead, Whitfield and Lang. Footer date, January 14, 2026. Document version 5.1. Richard said, that is the document. Let me be very clear about a few things for the record. He numbered them out loud. 1. That document has no legal power. As of midnight last night, there is nothing in it that Avery can sign over because she no longer has direct control to assign. It belongs to the Eleanor Trust. 2. The document was designed to be signed before Avery turned 18. The January 31st date, and the line requiring Diane Mercer's signature as legal guardian, tells us exactly what the intent was. Use parental authority to redirect a minor's future inheritance while that authority still existed. 3. In Iowa, a legal guardian is legally required to act in the best interest of the child they're responsible for. Attempting to move that child's inheritance into an entity where the guardian has personal financial interest, Callahan Mercer Partners LLC, filed October 2025, Craig Mercer listed as the sole member, is a serious legal problem. My mom said, please stop. 4, Richard said. I filed a formal ethics complaint with the Iowa State Bar regarding Dennis Whitfield's role in this, along with the 4 prior drafts of this document. Mr. Whitfield had 1 prior reprimand on record. This complaint was filed Monday. He was notified yesterday at 4 p.m. Craig said, "You filed on Whitfield." Monday morning. I expect he's not answering his phone today. The folder on the table looked completely different now. Smaller. Just paper. Paper with no power left in it. I said, "Mom, look at me." Her eyes came up slowly, red around the edges. "Did you know what he was building this whole time?" She said, "Avery, yes or no?" A long pause. "Yes," she said. I knew. Tyler made a sound I had never heard him make before. Small and genuinely shocked. Craig's palm came down flat on the table. Hard. The salt shaker skidded. Tyler flinched back. Craig said, "You did all of this behind our backs?" I looked at him steady. "Craig." I signed a legal document at 12:01 in the morning on my 18th birthday in front of a licensed attorney, a certified trustee, and a commissioned notary. In full legal standing. I let that settle. "You spent 5 months drafting documents with my name on them while I was 17 years old. I'd be careful about the word behind." His face had gone dark red. "We raised you." "Craig," I said, "you moved into this house when I was 12. You didn't raise me. You lived here." My mom flinched. Tyler looked at his hands. Craig said, "You ungrateful little." Richard's voice cut through clean. "Mr. Mercer, take a breath. This is documented." Craig stopped. Sat back down hard. Stared at the wall. I said, "Mr. Holt, before we wrap up, can I read one thing into the record?" "Go ahead," he said. I turned to page 8. Acknowledgement of family financial priorities, including educational assistance for Tyler James Mercer at the University of Denver. I looked up. Tyler. At my mom. Craig. The whole plan was to pay for Tyler's school. Nobody confirmed it. Nobody denied it either. Nobody had to. I closed the folder carefully. "I'll be keeping this. My attorney needs a copy." My mom said, "Avery." The wounded voice. The one she had been using on me my entire life to make me feel like every boundary I tried to set was a cruelty I was inflicting on her. "After every single thing I have done for you. After everything I have given up. Through all these years. This is how you pay me back." I let the wave of it move through the room. I said, "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about the word sacrifice. I'd like to come back to that conversation with you, with someone neutral in the room. Counselor. A mediator. Someone who's trained for this, not someone trying to win." She said, "I do not need a stranger to tell me how to be your mother." I said, "I think we do. I honestly think we've needed that for a really long time." She cried. Real tears, I'll give her that. But the script running underneath them was the same one I'd heard so many different times at so many different kitchen tables in so many different versions. Richard said quietly from the speaker, "Avery, your Aunt Carla is parked at the end of the driveway. She called me about 10 minutes ago. You can leave whenever you're ready." I stood up. I picked up the folder. Picked up my phone. Said, "Thank you for breakfast, Mom." Coat from the hook. Shoes by the door. I walked down the hallway past every framed photo on the wall. The front door, I stopped. I turned around. Tyler was watching me. Just Tyler. My mom had her face in her hands. Craig was somewhere far away behind his eyes. I said, "Tyler, you're 15. You didn't write those papers. You didn't plan any of this. Don't carry something that was never yours to carry. Text me in a year when you're more on your own." He nodded once. His eyes were wet. I opened the front door. April morning. Pale, clear, honest sunlight. I walked down the driveway. Aunt Carla's red Subaru was idling at the curb with the passenger door already unlocked. Carla's apartment in Denver was on the 4th floor on Colfax Avenue. She had a fern named Gerald she talked to while watering it. a golden retriever named Frank who had never once in his life understood that he was not a lapdog. A pull-out couch that turned out to be genuinely comfortable. She drove me to Denver. We listened to Fleetwood Mac. We stopped for eggs and pie at a diner in Salina. She didn't push me to talk. She just drove. When we got there, she said, shoes off, food, shower, sleep. Adult conversation in 12 hours. I did exactly that. When I woke up, I had 53 missed calls and 74 texts. My mom again. My mom again. Trisha from book club. A neighbor I hadn't talked to in 2 years. My mom's sister. Craig's business partner Leon. Our pastor. Avery, your mother is devastated. This is Pastor calling. Please reach out when you're ready. You are tearing your family apart, young lady. Carla looked over my shoulder at the screen. She said, block them. All of them. Every single one. Richard will tell you later which ones to unblock. Tonight your job is to rest. I blocked 17 numbers. Put the phone on Do Not Disturb. Frank jumped onto the couch, spun around twice, and collapsed against my legs like he'd made a decision about me. I slept for 11 hours. Naomi called that Sunday. I sat on Carla's little balcony in the Denver sunshine with Frank on my feet and talked to her for 2 hours. She said, Avery, you actually did it. I said, we did it. You kept me sane through like 7 near breakdowns. 8, she said. I counted. I laughed. Like actually laughed, without monitoring how loud it was. Without checking who was nearby to be bothered by it. Naomi said, can I say something? Yeah. I could tell something was wrong at your house since 8th grade. The way you sort of powered down the second your mom walked into a room you were in. Like you'd flipped a switch off. I said, I didn't realize it was that visible. Only if you were paying attention, she said. She thought that meant you weren't. Cedar Falls had opinions. Cedar Falls always had opinions. My mom went to church the Sunday after. 3rd row. Charcoal dress. She cried softly during prayer time and told the people around her that her daughter had left home suddenly in a moment of confusion. Our pastor's wife had been at the steakhouse dinner. She had heard Craig mouth big day. She had heard my mom's toast about smart decisions. She did not come over to hug my mom after service that Sunday. She drove home and called Patricia from book club. By Tuesday, the story in Cedar Falls had started to turn. Craig's real estate business had been running on prayer and late invoices for over a year. He had been planning, his exact words to his business partner Leon over drinks in January, to catch up on everything once the family capital situation sorted itself out. When his bank called the week after my birthday about an overdue equipment loan, the capital had not sorted itself out. They wanted $7,800 by Friday. Friday came. The money didn't. Truck went. Piece of heavy equipment went. Leon quietly started fielding client calls himself. My mom had co-signed on a home refinance 18 months earlier. Her name was on the debt. The math stopped working. She called an attorney in May. Not Whitfield. Whitfield was by then managing a crisis of his own. Someone new. She filed to legally separate her finances from Craig's that same week. Tyler's acceptance to the University of Denver had come with a $2,000 non-refundable deposit. It was already paid and gone. Admissions was kind about it. They offered to defer a year. Tyler chose Iowa State instead, in-state tuition 85% cheaper and honestly a solid school. Craig moved out of the house in Cedar Falls on a Saturday in June. He got a room above a garage in Ames. My mom kept the house. Technically, the bank kept most of it on paper. None of that was something I did. I had simply said no to being the life raft. They had spent 5 months trying to pull my future into their present. When I declined, they found out they'd been building on each other's debt all along. Richard's complaint against Dennis Whitfield moved through the Iowa State Bar faster than anyone expected. The legal assistant who had originally forwarded the drafts gave a formal statement. 2 other former clients of Whitfield's came forward on their own, an elderly widower whose late wife's life insurance had disappeared into a family business controlled by his son-in-law, and a retired teacher whose grandchildren's college account had been quietly restructured in a way she said she hadn't understood when she signed. The bar had a word for it: pattern. 10 weeks after Richard filed, the ruling came down. Dennis Whitfield was suspended from practicing law in Iowa for 4 years. Through that, 2 years of supervised probation. He couldn't touch an estate plan. He couldn't advise on a trust. He couldn't even draft a basic will. The Cedar Falls Register ran a 4-paragraph item on page 3. His photo. His firm's address. His license number. Kind of article that doesn't make the front page but gets quietly read by every attorney within 50 miles and every past client who ever wondered if something felt off. Richard forwarded it to me by email. No subject line. No message. Just the link. I wrote back, "Thank you." 4 minutes later, the truth doesn't need to be loud. Just needs to be filed correctly. I saved that email. I still have it in a folder on my laptop that I named after Papa Joe. Tyler texted me on a Tuesday in late May. I didn't know she wanted all of it. I swear. I thought it was just help with my tuition. I didn't ask her to. I read it 3 times. Naomi walked past while I was sitting there staring at my phone. She just said, "Tyler?" I nodded. She said, "Take your time with that one. Or don't. Either way is fine." I took 3 days. On Friday evening I wrote back, "Ty, I know. She gave you the piece of the story she needed you to believe. Planning was hers, not yours. You were 15 and in the kitchen. You weren't behind the paperwork." 3 dots appeared. For a long time. Then, "I'm really sorry." I wrote, "I know." Then, "I'm not angry at you. I'm not ready to be around our mom for a while, but I'm not cutting you off." He wrote, "Okay." Then, "Coffee when I'm 18 and on my own?" I'm serious. I wrote, "Yes. I'll drive to you." He wrote, "Okay, Avery." He hadn't called me by my actual name in 3 years. Always just AV. I set the phone down and looked out the window at Carla Street below, at Frank asleep on the rug, at the fern named Gerald in the corner. Carla came and sat across from me. She pushed a coffee toward me without asking if I wanted one. She said, "How's the kid doing?" I said, scared. A little lost. "He'll find his footing." She said, "You know you're not responsible for making sure he does." I said, "I know. But I can leave a door open for him." Carla tapped her mug against mine. She said, "Your dad would have loved that. The leaving the door open thing. That was very much him." I said, "Yeah, I think it was." August came. I packed Carla's Subaru on a Saturday morning. Trunk first, then the back seat, a quilt, a bag of books, the lamp from Papa Joe's old study, the mahogany keepsake box wrapped in a sweater. His letter had been in my coat pocket for months, soft and slightly worn from being folded and unfolded so many times. Carla drove me the whole way to Iowa City. 4 hours. Linda Ronstadt on the speakers. A stop at a diner in Ames, the same exit Papa Joe used to take when he drove out to visit us when I was little. I got the grilled cheese. I thought about all the times he'd made that drive without me knowing how much he was carrying on my behalf. University of Iowa in August is green and warm and smells like cut grass and something like possibilities starting up. My dorm smelled like new paint and someone down the hall's microwave popcorn. My roommate's name was Destiny, first-generation student from Milwaukee, astrophysics major, loudest laugh in any room she walked into, sunflower print on everything she owned. She hugged me 30 seconds after I walked through the door. She said, "Okay, I can already tell we're going to get along great." My last roommate was literally aggressively cheerful before 9 a.m. fair warning. I am not. I said, "I'm Avery." From Cedar Falls. She said, I'm Destiny. I also don't really talk to one of my parents. Instant solidarity. I laughed. Loud. Without checking the volume. Carla caught my eye from across the room. She smiled in a way that looked a little bit like old photographs of my dad. We made the bed. Hung the lamp. Carla took me to dinner at an Italian place on the pedestrian mall. She paid. She said, the Eleanor Trust is technically covering it, but I want the receipt so I can tell Frank we went somewhere fancy. When she dropped me back at the dorm, she put her hand on my face for just a second. She said, he would be so proud of you, Avery. And I say that knowing exactly what he would say. His exact words the last time we talked on the phone were, Avery is going to be just fine, Carla. She's the one who watches. She'll know what to do. I cried a little. She let me. Then she drove away. I didn't watch the car go. I turned and walked back toward the dorm. September was a full-speed blur. Political theory. Constitutional law survey. A statistics course I expected to hate and ended up genuinely enjoying. A pre-law student group that met Tuesday nights in a room that smelled like old carpet and first-year ambition. 9 other freshmen around the table, all talking fast about contracts and Supreme Court precedent and where they wanted to clerk after graduation. I didn't talk fast. I listened. I took notes. 3 of them became actual real friends. My mom went quiet for the first 2 months after I left. The first text arrived November 3rd. Are you safe? No punctuation. No question mark at the end. I read it twice. I didn't reply. 10 days later, I miss you. I didn't answer that one either. Not because reading it didn't affect me, but feeling something about a message and choosing to respond are 2 totally separate decisions. I'd learned that distinction the hard way. Carla called every Sunday. We talked about Frank, about her rotation schedule at the hospital, about what I was reading, about the things college was teaching me that my childhood house never had. One Sunday in November she asked, "How's your heart, Peanut?" I actually thought about it before answering. I said, "Quiet." She said, "Good quiet or bad quiet?" Destiny was in the shower down the hall, humming something off-key. Snow was starting to hit the window in small, soft flurries. I said, "Good quiet." The kind I didn't know actually existed. She said, "That's peace, honey." That's what that is. Peace. I let that word just sit there for a minute. I had spent my whole childhood being quiet because feelings were risky, because being happy at the wrong moment felt like something my mom would eventually charge me for. Silence had always been armor. Something I wore, not something I felt. But in this dorm room, with my roommate humming and the snow coming down and Papa Joe's old lamp warm on my desk, I understood for the first time that quiet could also just mean quiet. No threat inside it. No cost waiting on the other side. Just the sound of a life I was actually allowed to have. April 22nd, 2026. The Law Library. 3rd floor. The window seat near the radiator with the best view of the quad, under a light dusting of late-season snow. Property law exam in the morning. Textbook closed. Notes put away. At 11:58 p.m., I opened my laptop and logged into the Heartland Trust Services portal. The Eleanor Trust. April 1st to April 22nd. Balance, $812,441.22. Year-over-year growth, 9.6%. Distributions issued, tuition, housing, fall books, winter clothing grant. Next scheduled distribution, fall tuition, August. I scrolled to the bottom of the statement. In small italics, Joseph and Eleanor Callahan, originators of Trust Corpus. I put my fingertips against the screen for a moment, right over their names. 12:01 a.m., 1 year exactly from when I had typed my name in a locked bedroom in Cedar Falls. I closed the laptop. I sat in the window and looked at the snow. It was falling so slowly it barely seemed to be moving at all. Just hanging there, suspended in the glow coming from the building windows below. I thought about Papa Joe and his 7 words. Your life, your choices. Love always, Papa. I thought about my mom. I genuinely hoped she was okay. Not in some complicated, unresolved way, just the simple, clean way you hope any person eventually finds solid ground. She was still my mom. That still meant something, even when the relationship looked nothing like what it was supposed to. My phone lit up. Text from Destiny from 3 floors down. Why are you still awake? It is literally midnight. You have an exam. I wrote back, 10 more minutes. She sent, Avery, I will come down there. I smiled. Then a text from Naomi, who had sent something earlier that evening just to check in the way she always did without me having to ask. I wrote to her, hey. 1 year ago tonight. She wrote back inside 30 seconds, I know. Happy birthday to the Eleanor Trust. Then, he was right about you. You knew exactly what to do. I gathered my stuff. Walked to the elevator. Rode down to the lobby alone. Sighed in the cold, clear April night. I tilted my face up to the snow. I breathed out. Papa. I hope you know. Then I went back upstairs. Back to the room with the sunflower sheets and the old lamp and the window that looked out over a campus full of people just beginning to figure out who they were. I went home. Hey, if you made it all the way here, I need you to know something. That took guts to sit with. I know some of you didn't just hear a story just now. You heard your story. Or your sister's. Or something you've been carrying quietly for years. So here's what I want you to do right now. Drop a comment, 1 word only. What would you have done at 12:01 a.m.? Signed. Waited. Walked. I read every single one and I reply to as many as I can. Tell me where you're watching from, your city, and what time it is there. I love seeing where this reaches people. Seriously, it blows my mind every time. If this story hit home for you, hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You don't have to explain why. Just send it. The right person will know why you sent it. And subscribe if you haven't already, because another story is waiting for you in the description. See you in the next one.